What's going on, guys? Welcome back to episode 14 of my Puckpedia offseason series. Today, we got the Minnesota Wild coming into the offseason with $15 million in cap space, roughly, just about. Kind of looking at their offseason here, their roster is pretty full, but I do see a lot of room for improvement. There's some contracts that I think you'd want to dump, even though you do have cap space. And you just want to make way for some of the younger guys to start coming into the lineup and really, taking the next step in this rebuild, and making some moves that'll help, match your window, your time frame of the players that you already have, and help push you closer to a contending spot. So I think the main thing you want to do if you're the Wild is you want to get a 2C, which you already have Marco Rossi, right? But he's probably one of, if not the biggest name, other than Peterka, in trade rumors this offseason so far. So he's pretty much more than gone already. So I don't know why Bill Guerin doesn't want to keep Rossi. I think the main thing that came out in the reports was that, they thought he was kind of undersized and, didn't have what they wanted for their roster build, I guess. So maybe they're looking for a bit of a bigger guy who can maybe, put up some points, be more of a playmaker, which I think Rossi is a playmaker, but I don't know. I guess he just doesn't really fit what they want. So we're going to figure out how to trade for a 2C here. So looking at my trade board, the 2C that I would really like to see the Minnesota Wild go for would be Jared McCann. I don't even have him under centers here. Where do I have him? Under wingers. He's under wingers. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to trade for him, though. And I think the asking price for him would be pretty high, just because based off what we saw at the deadline, it was definitely a seller's market. So I don't think it'll be as extreme as it was at the deadline in the offseason, but I think that same kind of range for guys like McCann will probably be similar. So it probably would have been like 2 firsts or like a first and a A-tier prospect at the deadline. But I think Rossi is a pretty good guy to go the other way because he just fits Seattle's timetable better. And, he could slot in right under Beniers as the 2C there. So, or you could, be the center of the first line even if he could end up, outperforming Beniers. But I don't think Rossi's going to cut it, just Rossi for McCann, because, again, it is more of a seller's market right now more than anything. So another guy who's been unhappy with the Wild is David Spacek, Czech defenseman. So I'm pretty sure he's Czech. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna trade him along with Rossi. He's probably a B-tier prospect, I'd say. And the Wild already have a bunch of young defensemen, in Jiricek and Buyam and Chisholm. So there's not really space for a guy like Spacek in this on this team. So I think just this trade alone would go through. Maybe you attach like a later round pick, like a third if you're the Wild. But I don't even think you really need to. I think this is pretty fair as is. It's a nice hockey trade too. Just players for players. So, bang, that's your 2C figured out right there. Could even slot in at your 1C, but Eriksson Ek works pretty well on that first line with Kaprizov. So, next piece of business I actually want to take care of is extending Kaprizov. I know earlier this year or in the season, like November, there was like rumors of Kaprizov leaving in free agency and maybe going to Chicago or wherever. So I think if you're the Wild, you got to be ready to sign him now so that you don't risk it getting to the point of maybe you have another disappointing season next year and then he'll want out. So I think you give him 14 mil, maybe even 15 if that's what he wants. It'll probably kind of depend on what Marner gets, I assume. I think that'll probably reset the bar. So I'd say 14 mil for about 7 years. He's 28 years old, so you don't want to give him a whole 8 years because then you'd be paying him 14 mil until he's 36, which is definitely too old. So we'll do 7 years. Even that's generous already. I'd rather do 5 or 6 if I were the GM, but I'm not. So 14 mil for 6 years or 7 years, sorry. And that locks your star franchise player up for another 7 years. So looking at the rest of the lineup here, they are a little weak on their depth. The bottom 6 is kind of weak, and there's a little bit of shaking around I want to do. I think Danila Yurov should be the third line center, if not third line right winger. Either or, doesn't really matter. Foligno is slotted way too high for what he actually gives. And Zuccarello, I don't think is a good enough right wing 2 anymore at this stage, and he's getting older. Boldy is primarily a left winger, so what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to move him down here to the left wing 2, which opens 2 spots on the right wing in the top 6, which is perfect to bring in hometown Minnesota native and current free agent Brock Besser, who is heavily rumored recently to want to be going to Minnesota. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give him $75 million. No, I'm just kidding. $7.5 million. I'll go 6 years. 7 years feels a little long. He's 28, so this is till he's 34. So it's pretty good length. It'll be kind of probably right as that decline will start, maybe a little bit after it starts. But either way, that's fine because again, like I said in past videos, it's free agency, so you got to overpay if you want the guy, especially if it's a bigger name like Besser. This could maybe even be $8 million. Can easily be $8 million. So right wing 1, Brock Besser, hometown kid, bring him home. And then for right wing 2 here, I want to make another trade, just to kind of spice things up a little bit. And I'm going to go for Alexis Lafreniere. I think he fits Minnesota's rebuild window, or not rebuild because they're not really rebuilding anymore, but he fits their window perfectly. He's like at the same age as most of the core, maybe a little bit younger, but you still have younger guys around his age like Boldy and Yurov and Bouillon, Yurachek, all Faber, So I think Lafreniere is a perfect guy to trade for if you're Minnesota. Especially right now while his price is probably low. And the Rangers have already been pretty active in the trade market, so I could definitely see that continuing. So obviously, though, giving him up, it's giving up Lafreniere. You are going to have to give you're going to have to pay a hefty price for him. So we're going to go ahead here. We're going to help them with their need on the left D. We're going to give them Jonas Brodin. We're going to give them a top 6 scorer to kind of replace the loss of Lafreniere, who's been a former Ranger. So we're going to give him Matt Zuccarello. And then we're going to give him some youth defense because, again, they still need defense. Their defense is pretty weak. So we'll give them Declan Chisholm as well. And then on top of that, the cherry on top, a 2028 second-round pick, just as a sweetener. And if I'm in Minnesota, if you're giving up all this, I don't think you really have to give up a first with all that. And instead of Chisholm, you could also give up O'Rourke or Carson Lambos. So those 3 I'd see them as kind of interchangeable because I don't really know where all 3 of them would fit in Minnesota's plan. Maybe the Rangers would be more interested in one of O'Rourke or Lambo over Chisholm. So you could do that as well. It doesn't really matter. Either way, they're not moving the needle right now. Lafreniere is. So Brodin, Zuccarello, prospect defenseman, and a second for Alexis Lafreniere. That's a good trade to make if you're both sides because you get better defense. You improve your defense if you're the Rangers. Plus, you get a younger defenseman and a future pick, as well as some veteran leadership and potential top 6 scoring. Although I think that would be the one reason the Rangers don't do this trade is because they think Zuccarello is too old, which I could totally see being a realistic possibility. And again, these trades are kind of more just hypothetical for fun to see, what a trade would look like if you're Minnesota. It's not that they're necessarily good. I don't think they're going to necessarily go out and trade for Lafreniere, but you never know. So looking at this roster now, top 6 is pretty good. I think this is a great top 6, pretty round and complete, I'd say. But your bottom 6 still looks a little weak, if you ask me. So I'm going to make a little switch here. I'm going to put Ogren on the 3rd line with Hartman and Yurov. We'll keep Hartman at center. But Yurov and or Hartman could switch at center. It doesn't really matter. Probably whoever's playing better in the faceoff circle will get that spot. we'll leave Freddie Boudreau and Trennan here on the fourth line, and then I'll actually put Marcus Foligno on the right wing with them. And then these guys, we could kind of slot them into the press box. So looking at the defense now that the forward core is pretty much complete, Middleton is good enough to be your first pairing defenseman. Obviously, if you're giving up Brodin, your best left defenseman, that is going to leave a hole on your roster. And it's okay because you have guys coming up. But for the short term, like right now, and probably next year, maybe even the year after, depending on Bouilliam's development trajectory, you're going to want to kind of patch that hole real quick. So, because I don't think Bouilliam's ready enough to play on the second pair yet, unless he comes out and surprises, which he totally could because he's that kind of player. So I'm going to put Middleton on the first pair for now and leave Bouilliam on the third. And I'm going to bring in a UFA. So we have a remaining $5 million in cap space right now. So looking at my trade board here, looking for an LD. This guy would be LD2. I think Matt Grzelcyk is perfect for this. I feel like he'd fit really well in Minnesota for whatever reason. I feel like he's perfect for this roster. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to sign him $3.5 million for, I want to do 2 years, but I think in free agency, you're going to have to give him 3 years. And you may even have to give him $4 million instead of 3.5, because again, you got to overpay for free agents. Because that's what it takes to get them in this market. Because if you don't pay them that, then maybe someone else probably will. It's pretty easy to bargain your way up as a player when you have multiple teams who want you. So you have kind of all the leverage there. So we'll bring Grzelcyk in as an LD2. I think he'll pair great with Spurgeon. Also, Jiricek and Bogo are interchangeable, I'd say, at the condition of you probably don't want Bouilliam and Jiricek on the same pair, unless they work out great together. Because I think Bouilliam is more offensive, and I know Jiricek's pretty much more defensive shutdown, so maybe they would play really well together. But I think they're both just young and pretty inexperienced, so I think you'd want to do something like this where they're both paired with like an older vet. And Jiricek, I mean, I think he's at the point now where you really got to start cracking the NHL lineup, especially over a guy like Bogosian, who's pretty old, who's had a lot of wear and tear on his body over the years. Kind of thought he was older than 34, if I'm being honest, but for one more year, maybe Jiricek has to wait, but I don't think he'd really want to. I think that was the whole reason he kind of got out of Columbus, was because he demanded a trade because he didn't want to keep riding the pine. And he didn't want to keep playing in the minors. He was ready to go to the big leagues. So I think if you're him, your clock's kind of ticking. And if you're Minnesota, he's probably demanding to get into the lineup pretty soon here. So you could easily slot in over Bogosian, which is why I put him here and not in the press box. If I were to put him in the press box, that would kind of mean I wouldn't expect him to play at all, kind of like these guys, just fill in for injuries. But I do expect him to probably play, and that these two are interchangeable. So one of them will be in the press box. It's just a matter of which one. So that's probably going to do it for this video today. I really like what this team looks like. If these were the moves they were to make, they're heavily rumored to get Besser, and I think it's probably an attractive option for him, being that it's his hometown team. Probably grew up watching the Wild and has family that live there still. So that would make them very enticing to come to for him. And then you also strengthen your top six by trading for McCann and Lafreniere. And you get Rossi off your hands, and you get a good return for him. I think that's probably the biggest goal for Minnesota this summer, is to get a good return for Rossi. Because for whatever reason, they're so insistent on trading him. I'd really keep him if I were Minnesota. I'd pay him like $7 million for 7-8 years, But, I guess they don't want him, so you might as well get some value out of him if you're trading him. So, yeah, that's going to do it for this video, guys. I appreciate you tuning in, watching episode 14 here of my off-season series. You can leave a comment directly on the Puckpedia roster here on this video, because I'll link it in the description down below. So let me know your thoughts on the roster, either there on Puckpedia or directly here on YouTube. I answer comments on both, so I like the criticism. I like to see what other people think of my rosters and the accuracy of these moves, and if they'd be done or not. So sorry for rambling there. Thank you for tuning in. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.